Hey there and welcome. We've all been there, those moments when our most passionate, heartfelt prayers just seem to hit a wall. Today, we're going to jump into two really powerful stories from the Bible that tackle this very thing, and they reveal a kind of hope that's often hiding just on the other side of a divine no. So, let's set the stage a bit. Does the story of King David's unnamed son ring a bell? The one he had with Bathsheba, born before Solomon? His very short, tragic life was the focus of one of the most intense prayers you'll find anywhere in Scripture. We're definitely coming back to that. And thinking a little bigger, can you think of any prayer in the Bible that got a straight-up, undeniable no? There are a few, for sure, but one really stands out. It's just so desperate, and it didn't come from a king. It came from a prophet who was at the absolute end of his rope. And that leads us right into our first story, Elijah's prayer for an end. Now, this isn't just any prophet. This is Elijah, and he's fresh off this huge, triumphant victory on Mount Carmel. But as you'll see, that triumph, it turned to terror really, really fast. You really have to understand what's happening here. Elijah had just faced down 450 prophets of Baal and won. But then, a single death threat from Queen Jezebel sends him running for his life into the wilderness. He's totally drained, physically and emotionally. And in that pit of despair, he prays to die. It's such a raw, honest plea from a man who just feels like he can't take one more step.
But here's the thing. God doesn't answer the prayer he prayed. Instead of taking Elijah's life, God goes after the root of his despair. He sends an angel with food and water. He makes sure he gets rest. He leads him on this incredible 40-day journey and then speaks to him, not in some big, flashy way, but in a still, small voice. And this is so important. He gives him a new purpose, a brand new mission. So God didn't grant the request. He restored the man.
And this is where it gets just beautifully ironic. The man who was so sure his life needed to end, well, he ended up being one of the only people who would never actually experience a normal death. And the final outcome? It's just incredible. Years later, instead of dying, Elijah is taken directly up into heaven in a whirlwind. His prayer for an end was totally replaced with a new mission on earth and, well, the most unique exit you can imagine. God's no was really a yes to something so much bigger. Okay, so let's shift gears now to our second story. We're going from a prophet who wants his own life to end to a father desperately pleading to save the life of his son. So remember, this is right after David's sin with Bathsheba, and the prophet Nathan had told him their child wouldn't make it. David's reaction was immediate and total. He begged God, he fasted, he wept, he literally laid on the ground day and night. This was a father going all in, trying with everything he had to change God's mind. But despite the fasting, the tears, the intensity of his prayer, the outcome was exactly what had been foretold. On the seventh day, the child died. A direct, painful, and what seems like a totally unanswered prayer. And this is where the story takes a wild turn. His servants, they were completely baffled. As soon as David heard the news, he got up, cleaned himself up, and went to worship. When they asked him what in the world he was doing, he gave this incredible response. And he wasn't just talking about the grave. He was speaking from a place of profound hope. Let's just break down what he meant by that. David understood two things with crystal clarity. First, that his son was gone from this world and there was no bringing him back. But second, and this is everything, David believed that one day he would go to be with his son. This wasn't just him giving up. It was this powerful statement of faith in an afterlife and the hope of a blessed reunion. So, we've got these two totally different prayers from two very different men, and both of them got a no. Let's put them side by side for a second and really unpack what was going on here. Just look at this comparison. On one hand, you have Elijah praying for death. On the other, David is praying for life. Both denied. But look at God's response. For Elijah, it was all about restoration and giving him a new mission. For David, it was about providing comfort and a deep, solid hope. In both cases, the long-term outcome was way bigger than what they had asked for. One was taken to heaven without even dying, and the other was given the absolute assurance of an eternal reunion. And all of this leads to the main idea, right? The big takeaway that really ties these stories together and honestly speaks right to where we live. So here's the core principle. God might say no to the specific thing we're asking for, but that no is very often part of a much bigger yes. A yes to grace, a yes to a deeper purpose we can't see, or a yes to a future hope that's beyond our current situation. Divine wisdom saw that Elijah needed restoration, not an ending. And it saw that David needed the comfort and assurance of a future reunion, even more than a temporary fix for his grief. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? When we face that closed door in our own lives, that no to something we want so badly, what greater yes, what unseen purpose or deeper hope might we be missing? It's a thought that can completely reframe the whole idea of an unanswered prayer.